Hey, what's up, guys? It's Andrew Santowski. I'm back with another UFC prediction video. This time, UFC Fight Night, Edwards versus Brady. This event goes down in a little less than 2 weeks now. Saturday, March 22nd, 2025. Prelims begin at 12 p.m. It's going down from the O2 Arena in London, England. Great main event. The card leaves a little to be desired, in my opinion. But let's get into it. First up, Kutateladze against Kau Fernandez. And we just seen Fernandez pull out of a fight, I believe. He's on a one-fight winning streak. Won over Muhammad Yahya back in August. But he pulled out the Jared Gordon fight, I believe, a few weeks ago. And he's going up against Kutateladze, another guy that we don't see fight too often. He's on a one-fight winning streak. Hasn't fought since August when he beat Jordan Vucenic. And who's also fighting on this card. But I'm going to side with the more established Kutateladze here to pick up the win over Fernandez. But I mean, this should be a striker's delight. Jai Herbert against Chris Padilla. I'm still surprised Jai Herbert's still in the UFC. It seemed like they only use him for the overseas cards, or the England cards that they have. Beat Rolando Bedoya back in August, and I believe there was probably a lot of money on Bedoya in that fight. I think I remember the odds shifting to Bedoya's favor. Lost to Zion before that, no shame in that. We know how good Zion is. Chris Padilla, this guy, I believe he's 2-0 since entering the UFC. Beat Rong Zhu and beat James Leant since entering the UFC, and I'm going to pick Padilla here. I think Padilla's got a huge advantage on the ground. He's got a little less UFC experience, but I'm going to side with Chris Padilla. Kavanagh against Felipe dos Santos. I just don't really like Felipe dos Santos, man. He's lost to Andre Lima, beat Victor Altamirano, lost to Manel Kopp, which I believe was kind of his UFC debut, but that was kind of like a back and forth strikers fight there. The Victor Altamirano fight, he just did not look good. Lost to Lima. So he's still a young guy. Kavanagh, this guy, I believe he was really impressive on the Contender Series. He knocked out Antoine Ho back in August and then beat Jose Ochoa back in November in his UFC debut. And I'm going to pick Kavanagh here, but again, Felipe dos Santos should be a solid test for him. Colin Lagran against Nathan Fletcher. And this is a tough fight for me to call too. Lagran, it seems like he's been pretty active. Lost to Jake Hadley, which I don't think Hadley's no longer with the promotion. If don't quote me on it, but I don't think he's no longer with the promotion. Beat Angel Pacheco. Lost to Taylor Lapalus. Again, that's a tough guy to fight in your UFC debut. Nathan Fletcher, he's coming off a win over Zigomantas Ramaska, who I believe the odds shifted towards Ramaska too in that card, but he got it done. I believe it was like the first fight of the night, and so I'm gonna side with Fletcher here, but it won't surprise me if Lagran picks up the win. I think it's more of a striker versus grappler type of fight. I'm gonna side with Fletcher, but it won't surprise me if Lagran pulls this off. Marcin Tybura against Mick Parkin. I just wasn't really impressed with Parkin in his last outing against Lucas Bareski. Yeah, he picked up the win. I mean, it was a close fight against Mohammed Usman. Some of these I believe were kind of close, man. I believe, especially the Usman one. I mean, I think Mohammed Usman's a decent heavyweight. He did knock out Bareski, so maybe I did not see that fight because he did knock him out. But he's going up against Marcin Tybura, and this guy's just, I mean, this guy's been around forever. He's got a ton of UFC experience. He's headlined numerous cards, coming off a nice win over Jahanta Diaz, who the UFC was testing with Marcin Tybura. You know, Diniz is, he's a good striker, man. And Tybura took him out of there, really damaged him on the ground. Lost to Spivak in the main event last August, and I think that was just kind of fluky, man. Tybura had mount or whatever, got reversed, and Spivak locked up a sub, and I don't know. I think Marcin's too good for that to happen to, but But it happened. So I'm going to pick Tybura here. But, I mean, again, Tybura is going to want to get this to the ground. Parkin's going to want to keep this on the feet and make this a boxing match. But I'm going to side with Tybura. Andre Pulayev against Christian Leroy Duncan. Pulayev, he's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's coming off a win on the Contender Series last August. He hasn't fought since. So this is his UFC debut overseas in England, going up against one of England's own, Christian Leroy Duncan, who got absolutely dominated by Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez in his last fight back in July. That was that Muhammad Edwards card, UFC 304 on the main card, I believe, too. And Rodriguez just absolutely dominated him. And we just seen RoboCop 2 fight against Jared Cannonier, and he looked good for a round, but Jared Cannonier used his veteran experience to eventually TKO Gregory Rodriguez, I believe, in the 4th round. So, again, Christian Leroy Duncan, he's 3-2, I believe, in the UFC. And I think he's going to get a win here over Andre Pulayev. But, so I'm going to side with Christian Leroy Duncan. Shauna Bannon against Pooja Tomar. Tomar, 5-fight winning streak, 31 years old. And coming off a win over Ryan Amanda, a Brazilian women's fighter. That was in her UFC debut. And now she's getting Shauna Bannon. So I can see this fight going either way. Bannon, I think she's 1-1 in her UFC career. She is. So, again, I could see this being a close fight, man. So don't count out Pooja Tomar, but I'm going to side with kind of the hometown fighter here in Shauna Bannon. Jordan Vucenic against Chris Duncan. And Duncan, he's still going on in the UFC. He beat Bogdy Oki. He got subbed by Manuel Torres back in Mexico a year ago. So he's doing all right. For a while, I thought maybe he might have left the UFC, but he's still around. He's got a pretty impressive UFC record. Jordan Vucenic, 0-1 in the UFC. Again, no shame in losing to Kutateladze. I'm going to pick him to beat Chris Duncan here. But, again, I don't really know either fighter really well, but I'm going to side with Jordan Vucenic. Kevin Holland against Gunnar Nelson. If Kevin Holland can keep this fight on the feet, he should have a huge striking advantage. But this guy, I don't even feel like he's trying anymore. He doesn't train for the ground. He just taps out really easily, man. He doesn't have a lot of fight left in him, man. You know, he's taking fights for the money, but he's not gonna have no money to make if he doesn't get a win here. And the UFC, man, they've really coddled Gunnar Nelson. You know, Gunnar Nelson doesn't really have to face that tough competition anymore like he did in his UFC career, man. At one time, 10 years ago, you know, this guy had a lot of potential, man. You kind of thought this guy was going to be, you know, a top 10 fighter, top 5 fighter, man. But he just has not fought a lot often, and you can just kind of tell he's probably towards the end of his career. So, you know, I think the UFC is kind of just giving Gunnar Nelson fights that he can win. He's a huge fan favorite, I believe, in that region. So, again, Gunnar Nelson's going to want to drag this to the ground, lock up a submission. He hasn't fought in 2 years, so there should be some significant ring rust. I am still going to side with Gunnar Nelson, as sad as it is to say, despite the fact that the guy has not fought in 2 years. I mean, if he gets this to the ground, Kevin Holland will probably shortly tap afterwards. I mean, it's just kind of how it's been going. So, but again, Kevin Holland, he's got some fast hands and some decent striking, but it's hard to trust him here, man. So I'm gonna lean Gunnar Nelson here in this fight. Nathaniel Wood against Morgan Charrier. Again, don't really know either of these guys too well. I mean, obviously I've watched Nathaniel Wood fight in that. He's moved up to featherweight now in his last few fights. So, and he's got a pretty good record, man. He's beat some really good people. And Morgan Charrier, he's coming off a win himself over Gabriel Miranda. Lost to Chepe Marzakal before that, and Chepe's a tough fight. But I'm gonna side with Nathaniel Wood here. Molly McCann against Estela Nunes. Again, the UFC desperately trying to get Molly McCann a win here. Just hasn't gone her way. Lost to Bruno Bazil back in July. Beat Diana Belbita before that. And then, like I said, she's 1-3 in her last 4 fights. So the UFC desperately trying to get Molly Meatball a win here against Estela Nunes, who was on a 4-fight losing streak. So what does that tell you guys? You know, most people would have been cut from the roster. She's still on the roster, and that's to give Molly McCann a win. So my pick will be Molly McCann. Jan Blachowicz against Carlos Ulberg. Very good to see Jan Blachowicz returning from his long layoff, man. We haven't seen this guy fight, I believe, since the Alex Pereira fight in August of 2023, July of 2023, late July of 2023. And the guy that he went to a split draw with in the UFC light heavyweight title fight 2.5 years ago just won the belt. Magomed Ankalaev just won the belt yesterday. So again, there's a incentive for Jan Blachowicz to pick up the win here. He's got a lot more UFC experience than Ulberg. Ulberg has been a very active fighter. He's 11-1. I don't believe he's even lost in the UFC. Oh, he did to Kennedy Nanakuchu in his UFC debut back in March of 2021. So that was 4 years ago, guys. He's on a 7-fight winning streak. He keeps lining them up and finishing them. And I'm going to pick Jan Blachowicz here. I just think it's a tough test for Carlos Ulberg. Maybe he passes it, but Jan Blachowicz is no easy out for anybody. So I'm going to side with the more experienced fighter here in Jan. Leon Edwards against Sean Brady. What Sean Brady did to Gilbert Burns last September, very impressive, man. He showed that he can go all 5 rounds. Gilbert Burns has got great cardio, great grappling, good hands, and Sean Brady beat him fair and square. Leon Edwards, I don't think he was as prepared for Bilal, as he should have been. He got taken down and controlled, and Leon's used his wrestling in a lot of fights to do that to people. And I think Leon gets back on track here. I think this might be too stiff of a test for Sean Brady. I like both fighters, man, but Leon Edwards is still a good fighter, and he's being overlooked here, in my opinion. So the odds are currently plus 125 on Edwards. I got to take that all day. My pick will be Leon Edwards to get back to his winning ways. So, guys, my picks for this event: Leon Edwards, Jan Blachowicz, Molly McCann, Nathaniel Wood, Gunnar Nelson, Jordan Vucenic, Shauna Bannon, Christian Leroy Duncan, Marcin Tybura, Nathan Fletcher, Lanier Kavanagh, Chris Padilla, and Kutateladze.